The latest spaceflight by American aerospace giant Blue Origin has drawn significant attention amid a flurry of mixed opinions surrounding private space exploration. The mission, conducted with the new Shepard spacecraft designated NS-31, lasted just over 10 minutes and carried several high-profile passengers into space, offering a brief but thrilling experience. However, unlike the usual excitement that follows a crewed spaceflight, this mission was met with criticism and backlash over how Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos handled it. The company has made quite a few serious missteps, and that might be one of the main reasons why its reputation is taking such a hit right now. The all-female crew, including high-profile celebrities like Katy Perry and Gayle King, led some to view NS-31 as a publicity stunt rather than a scientific endeavor. Critics argued that the mission prioritized media attention over substantive contributions to space exploration. For example, posts on X labeled it a tourist flight, misrepresented as a mission, with a poorly designed mission patch adding to the perception of superficiality. Actress Olivia Munn questioned the mission's purpose, asking, "What are they going to do up there that has made it better for us down here?" Similarly, a New York Times op-ed criticized the flight as a morally vacuous space stunt, contrasting it with broader societal issues. The involvement of Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos' fiancée, who organized the mission, and the presence of celebrity guests like Oprah Winfrey and the Kardashians at the launch amplified accusations of elitism and spectacle. But before calling this flight an overhyped publicity stunt, we also need to consider the scientific aspects that were carried out during the mission. Unlike previous New Shepard missions, such as NS-23, which carried 36 scientific payloads, NS-31 was primarily a space tourism flight. While Aisha Bowe conducted 3 research experiments on plant biology and human physiology, the mission's scientific output was minimal compared to its promotional aspects. Critics argued that this focus undermined Blue Origin's credibility as a serious aerospace company. The customized flight suits, designed by a fashion brand, further reinforced the perception that the mission prioritized aesthetics over substance. There have also been several unusual findings regarding Blue Origin's new Shepard capsule. One of the most talked about issues is how the spacecraft appeared almost completely unaffected by the extreme heat typically encountered during re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Usually, spacecraft like NASA's Space Shuttle or SpaceX's Crew Dragon face temperatures reaching thousands of degrees Celsius due to atmospheric friction, which leaves visible burn marks or discoloration on their exteriors. But New Shepard showed no such signs, leading some people to question whether the flight actually took place. Another point of debate is the design of New Shepard's hatch, which opens inward. Critics argue that real spacecraft usually have outward-opening hatches to ensure safety in emergencies, especially when internal cabin pressure is higher than the outside. An inward-opening door, they say, is unusual and could hint at a simulated flight rather than a real one. Despite the growing number of theories, Blue Origin has yet to issue any official response. Could this silence be an attempt to dodge the more pointed questions? It's hard to tell what they're so worried about, but their continued lack of transparency certainly isn't helping. We've seen them keep quiet like this in the past whenever criticism comes up around their operations. It's a sharp contrast to SpaceX, which has built a reputation for being open and transparent. That's also a big part of why SpaceX has gained so much public support. If Blue Origin truly sees SpaceX as a model for its own growth, it should start taking a page from its rival's book. If they keep dodging important issues without addressing them openly, Blue Origin risks being pushed further away by the space community. And even if they succeed technically, deeper problems within the company culture could still lead to instability, or even long-term decline. This has clearly been proven by Blue Origin's past failures. Take the new Shepard spacecraft, for example. It's a vehicle with rather limited activity in the space industry. Since 2015, it has completed a total of 31 suborbital flights, but only 11 of those, counting the most recent one, have actually carried humans. Even though it hasn't flown often, the issues New Shepard has faced have been quite serious when they've happened. One of the most notable incidents occurred at the end of 2022, when a serious malfunction forced New Shepard to stay grounded for nearly a year. Just 1 minute after liftoff, the rocket hit max Q, the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure. But around that time, it appeared to suffer a major explosion. The New Shepard crew capsule, mounted on top of the rocket, then automatically triggered its launch abort system, activating a small engine to safely separate itself from the failing rocket. The system worked as intended, and the capsule parachuted safely back to Earth. Blue Origin later revealed that the issue stemmed from a problem with the engine nozzle, a large cone that directs the fiery exhaust out of the rocket's base. According to the company, the onboard computer correctly detected the failure and shut down the engine. No injuries on the ground were reported, and Blue Origin stated that the science payloads in the capsule were still reusable. However, the booster, with no functioning engine, crashed back to Earth and was destroyed. Normally, after a New Shepard launch, the rocket booster autonomously returns to land vertically so it can be reused. This was a very serious incident, and the FAA launched an investigation. The findings showed that the engine nozzle had failed due to higher than expected temperatures, something Blue Origin hadn't accounted for. While the company has since addressed the issue and successfully flown New Shepard 8 more times since that failure, the event still casts a shadow over the rocket's future, especially for flights carrying people. And that's not the end of it. Earlier in 2024, the first crewed flight since the 2022 incident ran into trouble with its parachutes during landing. The problem seems to have been resolved, but Blue Origin provided very little information to the public about the parachute issue or the investigation. They didn't even mention it in the mission's official press release. Honestly, this just raises more doubts about what Blue Origin is really doing with its rocket program. And if things keep going this way, how long will it take them to catch up to SpaceX? In my opinion, 5 years would be the minimum, if not decades. Besides New Shepard, how could we forget to talk about New Glenn and its engine, the BE-4? Although New Glenn finally launched successfully earlier this year, getting to that point was anything but easy for Blue Origin. Originally announced in 2020, New Glenn's debut was delayed to 2021 due to technical challenges. Losing a major contract in 2020 was a huge blow. It cost Blue Origin $250 million in technical funding and $3 billion in potential revenue. That setback pushed New Glenn's launch to 2022, then again to 2024, even after the company completed its design reviews. But problems kept popping up. Developing New Glenn has been a massive financial strain, especially without government support. Blue Origin poured over $2.5 billion into the project, including $1 billion just for Launch Complex 36. The company had to rely on commercial contracts from NASA and Amazon's Project Kuiper, but without early-stage funding, progress slowed. It's a clear example of the financial pressure companies face in the space industry. Fortunately, a successful hot fire test in September 2024 and the integration of the launch pad by year's end brought new hope. But then came another setback. The January 2025 launch was postponed. And when New Glenn finally lifted off on January 16th, it reached orbit, but the booster was lost. Follow-up launches, originally planned for early 2025, have now been pushed back to late spring. This all suggests that there are underlying issues Blue Origin isn't openly discussing. In fact, the company may have more unresolved problems than most people realize. Despite that, a recent update from NASA's Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel, shared during a public meeting, stated that the next New Glenn launch is expected sometime around June. But seriously, can Blue Origin really pull that off? Or is this going to be another empty promise like so many in the past? Don't not forget that New Glenn has been in development for over a decade, and the original goal was to recover the booster after its very first flight. They couldn't even manage that. And with all the lingering issues and the lack of visible hardware testing, it's starting to feel more like pressure than genuine progress. If that's the case, the end result could be extremely risky, or even a complete disaster. And let's not overlook Blue Origin's struggles with its engine development program, something the company has tried hard to keep under wraps. In June 2023, a BE-4 engine exploded just 10 seconds into an acceptance test at Blue Origin's West Texas facility. The blast destroyed the engine, which had been slated for the second Vulcan launch, CERT-2, and caused major damage to the test stand. Eyewitnesses described the explosion as extremely serious, and video footage reportedly showed extensive destruction, though Blue Origin never released the footage. Unlike SpaceX, which is known for sharing its test results openly, Blue Origin stayed quiet, only confirming the incident after CNBC broke the news. This reluctance has drawn sharp criticism, highlighting the company's secretive and overly cautious culture, one that stands in stark contrast to SpaceX's fast-paced, open, and iterative testing philosophy. Even before the explosion, the BE-4, meant to compete with SpaceX's Raptor, was years behind schedule. It was supposed to be ready by 2019, but ended up being delayed by 5 years. This not only held back New Glenn, but also delayed the Vulcan rocket from ULA. So after everything, years of delays, missed targets, engine failures, and a series of underwhelming launches, Blue Origin has yet to deliver a true breakthrough in its space program. What we've seen instead is growing skepticism and increasing criticism from within the space community, both from professionals and space enthusiasts alike. The question now is no longer just about technology or funding. It's about vision, transparency, and whether Blue Origin can shift its internal culture to meet the demands of a fast-evolving aerospace landscape. While SpaceX continues to iterate rapidly, share its successes and failures openly, and inspire confidence with every milestone, Blue Origin remains shrouded in secrecy, weighed down by overly cautious decision-making, and what appears to be a reluctance to fully engage with the public or the industry at large. So, how can they grow? How can they realistically hope to catch up to SpaceX, or even establish themselves as a reliable leader in the new space economy? The truth is, that path will be incredibly difficult and possibly unattainable unless Blue Origin is willing to change, fundamentally and from within. They'll need to embrace a spirit of innovation that's not afraid to fail in public. They'll need to communicate more openly, build trust through action, and foster a company culture that thrives on experimentation, accountability, and ambition. And so, we're left wondering, what will Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin actually do next? Will they finally rise to the occasion and reinvent themselves to meet this new era of space exploration? Or will they remain in the shadows of their competitors, weighed down by missed opportunities and unrealized potential? Only time will tell. But if they're serious about competing with SpaceX, they'd better start showing it. While Blue Origin's latest New Shepard launch continues to face harsh criticism, some have gone a step further, claiming that mission NS-31 was nothing more than a stage simulation meant to mislead the public. Their main argument? The suspiciously spotless condition of the New Shepard crew capsule after landing. So, what's the truth? And how has Jeff Bezos responded to the controversy? Blue Origin's NS-31 capsule comes back looking like it just rolled off the lot sparkly clean, with no scratches, no "I survived" re-entry scorch marks. Compare that to SpaceX's Crew Dragon, which looks like it got roasted at a campfire, or Boeing's Starliner, also sporting that charbroiled vibe. Naturally, folks are raising eyebrows like, did this thing even go to space? Shouldn't it at least smell like a BBQ? So, is Blue Origin deceiving the public? Luckily not. All the doubts surrounding this flight were actually raised based on video footage released by Blue Origin. However, part of the blame for the rumors damaging Blue Origin's reputation lies with the company itself. Despite all the negative speculation, Blue Origin has remained silent, which has only led more people to believe that the launch may never have happened. The situation is becoming increasingly complicated as conspiracy theories begin to take hold among space enthusiasts. And to understand why Blue Origin's New Shepard capsule doesn't appear scorched after landing, it's essential to look at the fundamental differences between suborbital and orbital space flights. New Shepard's missions are suborbital, meaning the vehicle ascends to space but doesn't achieve the velocity required to orbit the Earth. Each flight reaches an altitude of about 66.5 miles, 106.9 kilometers, just beyond the Kármán line, the internationally recognized boundary of space. Once it reaches peak altitude, the capsule experiences a brief period of weightlessness before falling back to Earth in a controlled descent. Because New Shepard re-enters the atmosphere at relatively low speeds around 1 kilometer per second, or 2,237 miles per hour, it experiences minimal aerodynamic heating. This gentle return eliminates the need for a heavy-duty heat shield, and it's why the capsule often lands looking unblemished. In contrast, orbital spacecraft like SpaceX's Crew Dragon operate at significantly higher altitudes and speeds. Crew Dragon typically orbits the Earth at altitudes between 250 to 260 miles, 400 to 420 kilometers. To stay in orbit, it must travel at roughly 17,000 miles per hour, Mach 22, or about 7.8 kilometers per second. Upon re-entry, Crew Dragon must slow down dramatically, and in doing so, it slams into Earth's atmosphere at incredible speeds, generating immense heat. This creates intense fiery conditions that char and blacken the spacecraft's exterior, giving it a toasted marshmallow appearance. The visual damage isn't a flaw, it's evidence of the extreme thermal protection systems doing their job. So, why doesn't New Shepard look like it's been through a furnace? It's just not going fast, or far enough to get toasty. It's like showing up to the gym, doing a quick stretch, and bouncing. Technically there, but not breaking a sweat. The capsule floats down with parachutes, all calm and glamorous, with no heat shield drama required, just pure vibes. That's why some folks call it a ride, which got Gayle King heated after her all-female Blue Origin flight with Katy Perry and Lauren Sanchez. She clapped back online saying, "Don't call it a ride. No one calls it a ride when men go up. Alan Shepard didn't get called that." Okay, quick reality check. Alan Shepard was the first American in space, walked on the moon, and could actually fly the rocket after years of training. Gayle? She basically just had to practice buckling her seatbelt for a 4-minute trip, shorter than a Disney ride. New Shepard's missions are all about passengers rich folks checking space off their bucket lists. No cargo, no experiments, just a few minutes of weightless woo fun. At this point, the question arises, if New Shepard simply continues its journey as it is, can Blue Origin still maintain its space ambitions? Time marches on, and progress in the space industry is relentless. If it stands still, New Shepard and suborbital flights may eventually become obsolete compared to orbital missions. New Shepard's suborbital tourism model, offering 10 to 12-minute flights to approximately 106 kilometers altitude with a few minutes of microgravity, has proven viable, with 58 passengers flown across 11 crewed missions as of April 2025. With an estimated ticket price of $200,000 to $300,000 per seat, this model targets high net worth individuals seeking a unique experience. The vehicle's high reusability, 99% dry mass, low operating costs, Hydrolox BE-3PM engine, and potential for frequent flights, initially planned monthly launches, ensure profitability, potentially generating $10 to $20 million annually. However, the rise of orbital tourism presents a serious threat to this segment. Orbital tourism, such as SpaceX's Crew Dragon missions. Example, Inspiration 4 in 2021 offers multi-day vacations in low Earth orbit LEO, extended microgravity exposure, and panoramic views of Earth vastly outclassing New Shepard's brief experience. Companies like Axiom Space, which sends private crews to the ISS, and SpaceX's planned Starship missions, promise deeper space access, including lunar flybys. Orbital trips, though more expensive, deliver an immersive astronaut experience that appeals more to the same wealthy demographic targeted by New Shepard. Moreover, competition in the industry poses a significant challenge. Even if New Shepard continues to grow within its niche, it will struggle to surpass SpaceX. SpaceX's head start in crewed flights sets a formidable benchmark. As of April 2025, Crew Dragon has completed numerous NASA and private missions to the ISS with seats priced around $55 million. Starship, still in development, aims at Moon and Mars missions, with full reusability potentially lowering orbital tourism costs to $1 to $5 million per seat. SpaceX's operational pace of hundreds of Falcon launches and 2 to 3 Starship tests in 2025 contrasts sharply with New Glen's single launch, giving SpaceX unmatched reliability and economies of scale. Its end-to-end ecosystem, rockets, capsules, ground systems, and partnerships with Axiom and NASA position the company to dominate both orbital tourism and station transport, potentially pushing Blue Origin out of key markets while it is still developing its capsule. Public interest in orbital missions continues to rise, fueled by celebrity flights and media coverage. Suborbital tourism, while novel, may begin to feel like a lesser achievement, a joyride, rather than the prestigious status of being an orbital astronaut. As orbital tourism expands, New Shepard's novelty may fade, especially for repeat customers or status-seeking travelers. But what if New Shepard were developed into an orbital spacecraft? It sounds interesting, but it's far from easy. Orbital flight requires speeds of about 27,000 kilometers per hour, 7.5 kilometers per second, necessitating multi-stage rockets and heat shields for re-entry capabilities not present in New Shepard's single-stage suborbital design, which reaches about 3 kilometers per second. Discussions on X and technical analyses suggest that while additional fuel or more powerful engines might increase altitude slightly, achieving orbit would require a complete redesign, including staging systems and thermal protection. The crew capsule, while spacious, lacks life support for longer missions, orbital control capability, or docking mechanisms required for space station operations. Retrofitting these features would essentially result in a new spacecraft undermining the proven suborbital architecture of New Shepard. Moreover, the cost of such a redesign, potentially in the billions for R&D and testing, would rival that of developing a dedicated orbital vehicle, making it an inefficient use of resources, especially since New Glenn is already targeting orbital missions. In conclusion, New Shepard is very likely to become obsolete in the future if the company does not make any changes to its vehicle. So now many people are wondering how New Shepard contributes to the advancement of human space exploration. I am in no way defending Blue Origin, but in reality, New Shepard's suborbital flights are not entirely useless. While orbital missions contribute more directly to long-duration space flights, research, and the development of space infrastructure, suborbital missions still have value in specific scenarios. They offer quick, repeatable access to microgravity for short-duration experiments. Each suborbital flight provides about 4 minutes of high-quality microgravity, ideal for experiments in physics, biology, technology demonstrations, and educational projects. For example, the NS-29 mission demonstrated artificial gravity by spinning the capsule to simulate lunar gravity. The capsule was spun at 11 revolutions per minute, generating 1/6 of Earth's gravity. In this simulated lunar gravity, customers can accelerate learning and tech readiness for lunar payloads at a much lower cost. The system supports a wide range of payloads, from student projects to advanced NASA technologies. NASA's Flight Opportunities program also regularly sends payloads on New Shepard, including precision landing sensors, advanced navigation systems, and lunar gravity simulators. Blue Origin designed New Shepard to be fully reusable, allowing for rapid turnaround between missions and enabling frequent lower-cost payload flights compared to orbital systems. Researchers can quickly iterate and refine experiments, as the short mission durations and fast reusability of New Shepard provide regular access to space-like conditions without the long waiting times of orbital missions. This is essential for perfecting innovations before deploying them on higher-risk, more expensive orbital or deep space missions. Additionally, Jeff Bezos sees his suborbital vehicle as a testbed for developing reusable architecture for future rockets like New Glenn. Lessons learned from designing, building, testing, and operating New Shepard, especially in areas like autonomy, guidance, vertical landing, throttleable liquid engines, and streamlined operations, are being applied to the much larger and more complex reusable first stage of New Glenn. This includes the ability to land and reuse the booster, a core feature of New Glenn's design. Mastering vertical landings with New Shepard lays the foundation for New Glenn, which will attempt to recover its much larger first stage by landing it on a drone ship at sea, a similarly challenging principle. The operational philosophy and safety culture developed through New Shepard's crewed spaceflights also inform New Glenn's design, particularly in crew safety, redundancy, and cost-effective operations. Moreover, New Shepard's frequent successful landings and refurbishments have allowed Blue Origin to refine its approach to reusability, logistics, and quick turnaround times, all critical for New Glenn's goal of flying its first stage up to 25 times. Last but not least, the BE-3 engine proven on New Shepard forms the basis for the BE-3U upper stage engine on New Glenn, while the reusable BE-4 engines powering New Glenn's first stage benefit from Blue Origin's accumulated experience with reusable propulsion systems. While Crew Dragon missions target professional astronauts and, in the case of Inspiration 4, civilians for multi-day orbital trips. New Shepard opens space access to non-astronauts, including artists, educators, and celebrities. So, to some extent, it helps spark public interest in space. This is a big humiliation for Blue Origin. Even a regular ISS cargo mission by SpaceX is more useful than Blue Origin's entire NS-31 flight. NASA just bet everything on SpaceX's Dragon to take over for Cygnus NG-22 after technical issues grounded it. This move was a slap in the face for Blue Origin, making their dramatic six-woman flight look even more embarrassing. Blue Origin and SpaceX have always been fierce rivals, practically at odds in the US space industry. But while Blue Origin has struggled to make a real impact, SpaceX has shot up at a pace no one could have predicted. Even with NASA, the biggest player in the game, SpaceX has come out on top, locking down key commercial contracts, especially in crewed missions. Meanwhile, Blue Origin, they're still left out in the cold, not even making the list. Back in 2008, SpaceX was on the verge of collapse after 3 failed Falcon 9 launches. Elon Musk had just enough money left for one final attempt. If that 4th flight failed, it would have been game over, and Musk might not have even been able to pay off his debts. But thanks to relentless effort and a bit of luck, the 4th launch in September 2008 succeeded. And right after that, seeing SpaceX's potential, NASA stepped in with a $1.6 billion contract to deliver cargo to the ISS, saving the company from the brink. That was the moment that sparked the creation of 2 iconic vehicles that would define Musk's company, the Falcon 9 rocket and the Dragon spacecraft. By now, the reliability of these 2 vehicles pretty much speaks for itself. Falcon 9 is on track to hit a huge milestone, 500 launches, by May or sometime in mid-June this year. And the Dragon capsule? It's not just safe, it's actually far more modern and secure than the old-school Soyuz spacecraft. This year, it's also expected to reach its 50th successful docking with the ISS. That's why NASA has placed most of its trust in them, handing over the responsibility to clean up the mess left behind by other companies' vehicles. Like the rescue flight for Suni and Butch in March, NASA only trusted Dragon, so they worked with SpaceX to get them home safely. Also in March, Northrop Grumman's Cygnus NG-22 was damaged during transport, forcing NASA to cancel the planned June 2025 mission. To make up for it, NASA adjusted SpaceX's Cargo Dragon mission, set for April 21, 2025, by cutting back on science experiments and packing in extra food and supplies for the ISS instead. According to NASA, on April 23, 2025, Cargo Dragon will automatically dock with the Harmony module on the space station. This spacecraft is carrying around 6,700 pounds of cargo and scientific investigations to the orbiting lab. Unlike recent Dragon cargo missions, SPX-32 is bringing a lot more crew supplies, about 3,238 pounds. That's a big jump compared to 2,118 pounds on SPX-31 last November, and just 1,201 pounds on SPX-30 back in March 2024. The reason? NASA's concerned that the Cygnus spacecraft, scheduled to launch the NG-22 mission in June, might have issues during transport again, just like it did earlier this year. So, they loaded up Dragon with extra food and essentials for the crew, just in case. But that shift came with a trade-off. SPX-32 is only carrying 562 pounds of science cargo inside Dragon, nearly 1,500 pounds less than what SPX-31 brought. Among the experiments on board are studies on plant growth, an air monitor to check the station's air quality, and pharmaceutical payloads. There's also the smartphone video guidance sensor 2, which is being tested with the help of the Astro B robot aboard the ISS. Essentially, it's a camera sensor developed by NASA that helps control the movement of small satellites in space. This technology could make satellite formations more accurate and reliable, and it has huge potential for future space missions, like remotely operating robots on the Moon or Mars. In addition, Dragon is also delivering 1,653 pounds of unpressurized cargo. This includes the atomic clock and space experiment from the European Space Agency, which will help study Einstein's theory of general relativity, as well as the Houston 10 spaceflight test program experiments. At first glance, the significance of SpaceX's SPX-32 flight is clear. Not only does it ensure the ongoing food supply for astronauts aboard the ISS, but it also contributes to important scientific research. For instance, studies on bone and muscle loss in microgravity could eventually lead to breakthroughs in treating conditions like osteoporosis and muscle deterioration in the elderly. Experiments like BioCell, which looks into immune cell behavior in space, hold promise for advancements in vaccines and cancer immunotherapy. Over the years, Dragon has proven its immense value to NASA, delivering real science, critical cargo, and substantial progress in space research. SpaceX's contributions have made a lasting impact. Now, compare this with Blue Origin's recent NS-31 mission, where 6 female passengers flew aboard New Shepard. On the surface, the flight seemed inspiring, an all-female crew in space for the first time in this century. But in reality, it didn't contribute anything to scientific advancement. Instead, it reinforced Blue Origin's image as a luxury space tourism company rather than a serious player in space exploration. While the NS-31 mission carried a powerful symbolic message, reminding us of the 1963 milestone when Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman in space, it didn't push the boundaries of space science or exploration like SpaceX's mission. The flight also featured a diverse lineup of notable figures from different walks of life, from pop star Katy Perry to aerospace engineer Aisha Bowe. It was a clear message from Blue Origin. They want to bring space closer to everyone and inspire the next generation, especially women and young girls, to pursue careers in STEM. As Amanda Nguyen put it, "If I can fly to space, so can you." Sure, the mission had a noble purpose, but let's be honest, it wasn't exactly accessible. All 6 passengers were already famous and wealthy in their fields. So, hey ladies, if you're dreaming of going to space, better start saving at least $300,000 for a few minutes up there, just like they did. Actually, the NS-31 flight wasn't just a photo op. Like SpaceX's CRS missions with Dragon, including the recent Fram-2 flight, it also carried scientific experiments. The Vietnam National Space Center teamed up with Amanda Nguyen to send 169 Vietnamese lotus seeds to space. The goal? To study how space conditions affect the seeds, research that could have real applications in agriculture and science back here on Earth. But it does raise an interesting question. With just a few minutes up there at around 67 miles above Earth, can you really get any meaningful results from an experiment like that? Ultimately, the flight ended up putting even more pressure on Blue Origin, and at the worst possible time. Headlines and social media erupted with debates over whether missions like NS-31 truly offer any real value, or if they're simply flashy billionaire joyrides. This scrutiny only chipped away at Blue Origin's image as a company supposedly working for the greater good of humanity. But the timing of NS-31's launch only added to the pressure. Blue Origin was already locked in a high-stakes race with SpaceX, a company that was securing massive contracts, including a $5.9 billion satellite launch deal with NASA and the Pentagon. Meanwhile, Blue Origin had only secured $2.3 billion in deals. In this context, NS-31 wasn't just a PR move. It became a symbol of Blue Origin's struggle to keep up with its more successful competitor. While NS-31 failed to spark the kind of inspiration it was aiming for, SPX-32 quietly and powerfully demonstrated what truly matters in spaceflight. At a press conference before the flight, NASA reassured everyone that everything had been carefully calculated and there were no concerns about food supplies or other consumables on the ISS. Right now, the crew remains well supplied, said Zebulon Scoville, Deputy Director of NASA's ISS Integrated Transport Office. According to him, the ISS crew is well stocked, with supplies secured through the summer of 2025, even if the next mission, SPX-33, were delayed. This underscores the critical role SPX-32 plays in ensuring the crew's survival and continued operations, especially for Expedition 73. It's a subtle yet clear reminder that SpaceX's Dragon is absolutely essential for maintaining the ISS's function and crew support. Besides its direct contributions to the ISS, Cargo Dragon also represents a bigger shift in space exploration, setting SpaceX apart from competitors like Blue Origin's New Shepard. During SPX-32, Cargo Dragon C-209 flew for the 5th time, showing off the durability and cost efficiency of SpaceX's reusable tech. Each successful reuse cuts down costs and reinforces the company's mission to make space travel more affordable and sustainable. But Dragon isn't just built for routine cargo runs. It's designed for more advanced tasks, laying the foundation for future human missions to the moon. New Shepard, meanwhile, is a different story. This quirky-looking spacecraft is reusable too, but let's be real, it's mainly built for space tourism and a bit of microgravity research. It launches straight up, crosses the Kármán line, that 62-mile mark where space officially begins, then floats back down with parachutes, all in just about 11 minutes. Now, New Shepard is all about those suborbital missions, so you only get around 3 minutes of weightlessness. The rocket booster lands vertically, while the crew capsule with its fancy panoramic windows gives you a short but breathtaking view of Earth's curve. But let's be real, it's a space selfie for the ultra-rich, not a serious player in the deep space game. Meanwhile, Dragon isn't just about a quick joyride. It's got a cupola window that gives astronauts a much better view of Earth and space. It's built for the long haul, for real missions, not just for getting rich folks to say, "Hey, I've been to space." However, we shouldn't dismiss New Shepard completely. In the grand scheme, both spacecraft offer unique value. Cargo Dragon and New Shepard reflect two distinct approaches to commercial space. SpaceX focuses on infrastructure, enabling science and prepping for deep space missions. Its work with NASA makes it a key player in driving down costs and expanding human presence in orbit. Blue Origin, meanwhile, takes a more inspirational route. New Shepard is about accessibility and creating cultural moments, like NS-31. While it lacks the scientific punch of SpaceX, it still plays a role in shaping public interest in space. The NS-31 flight may not have delivered supplies to the ISS or supported a major NASA mission, but that doesn't mean it was meaningless. One key takeaway is that New Shepard, while not part of NASA's core programs, still plays a role in today's increasingly commercial space industry. NASA's long-term vision is to open space to more players, cut launch costs, and build a sustainable space economy. In that sense, New Shepard's reusability and relatively low ticket price, $250,000 to $500,000, make it a small but meaningful step toward that future. It's a testbed for business models that could eventually make space more accessible to startups, researchers, and even everyday people. And every flight adds to Blue Origin's operational experience, refines its reuse tech, and moves the company closer to bigger goals, like launching the New Glenn orbital rocket or landing the Blue Moon lander. These projects align with NASA's future, especially the Artemis program. So, while NS-31 didn't push science like Cargo Dragon, it still quietly supported the long game, building the commercial ecosystem NASA will depend on for decades. Jeff Bezos' dream of colonizing space just completely crashed after NS-31 turned into a big comedy show. From accusations of flaunting luxury during inflation to the unforgettable faceplant in front of tens of thousands of livestream viewers. This flight left him more embarrassed than ever before. Moreover, Blue Origin even accidentally humiliated the 6 tourists on board when they were compared to a chimpanzee. After hearing the stories of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, I realized something. The people who dare to dream big and actually chase those dreams are the ones who end up truly successful and wealthy. Take Elon Musk, his dream is to help humanity live on Mars. That's wild. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos has a more modest vision, sending millions of people to work on the moon. Maybe that's why he's still second on the rich list. Jeff's story and Blue Origin started way back when he was just 5, watching the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969. That moment lit a spark. Years later, thanks to his talent and relentless drive, Bezos turned a tiny online bookstore into Amazon, a global tech empire, and with the fortune he built, he finally had the chance to chase that childhood dream. That's when he founded Blue Origin, his own space company, built to bring humanity closer to the stars. Blue Origin was founded in 2000, but for almost 15 years, it operated in complete secrecy. Nobody knew what they were working on, and without any public product launches, the company barely made a ripple. In contrast, SpaceX achieved major milestones just 6 years after its launch, successfully launching Falcon 1 into orbit on its fourth launch test in July 2008. Actually, while SpaceX was testing Falcon 1, Blue Origin revealed they were working on a suborbital rocket called New Shepard, named after astronaut Alan Shepard. However, it took them nearly 10 years to get it off the ground, with the first flight finally happening on April 29, 2015, in Texas. Yeah, it took them 15 years and about $7 billion for development to launch a spacecraft that didn't even reach orbit. But hey, at least it opened up space tourism, a few minutes of floating in zero gravity and gazing at Earth. If you've got the cash, no big deal, right? Bezos also came up with a rival to SpaceX's Falcon 9, the New Glenn. However, it's still a long way from catching up with SpaceX's technology. All right, let's return to New Shepard. So far, it has completed 31 flights, as reflected in its most recent mission, NS-31, and that particular flight ended up causing some trouble for Jeff Bezos. The flight took off at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time from Blue Origin's launch site 1 in West Texas, after a smooth and uneventful countdown. The spacecraft's capsule, called RSS Kármán Line, reached an altitude of 106 kilometers before safely landing 10 minutes and 21 seconds later. The crew consisted of 6 members: Aisha Bowe, Amanda Nguyen, Gail King, Katy Perry, Carrie Ann Flynn, and Lauren Sanchez, all of whom took part in the mission together. They came from diverse backgrounds, including science, media, music, and social activism. The purpose of this flight was to make history as the first all-female spaceflight crew, an idea proposed by Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos' girlfriend. The mission also marked a meaningful step toward breaking gender stereotypes in the space industry. Crew members like Aisha Bowe, a former NASA rocket scientist, and Amanda Nguyen, a prominent civil rights advocate, showed that women can lead in critical fields. Additionally, Blue Origin hoped this mission would capture global attention, especially from countries like Vietnam. Amanda Nguyen became the first Vietnamese-American woman to travel to space, marking a powerful moment of representation. In many ways, the flight was crafted as a high-impact public outreach effort. At first, things seemed to go perfectly. The launch was smooth, and many believe Bezos and his company were finally going to earn the recognition they'd been chasing. But instead of praise, they were met with mockery and skepticism. The mission that was meant to elevate their image ended up stirring more doubt about Blue Origin's direction and credibility. There are several reasons for this. Firstly, it was arguably the worst time to launch a public relations stunt about space tourism for the ultra-wealthy. The global economy was reeling from the shockwaves of tariffs imposed by POTUS. Consumer confidence was at its second lowest level since 1952, even worse than during the Great Depression, surpassed only by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sending American pop stars like Katy Perry and Bezos' fiancée Lauren Sanchez into space, it seemed tone-deaf and out of touch with the economic struggles many people were facing. This left Bezos and the passengers on board looking completely out of place, like deer caught in headlights. It perfectly shows the risk of being seen as out of touch or disconnected from what people really care about in today's world of social media and public scrutiny. Secondly, from a pure public relations standpoint, this was a major faceplant. Bezos had positioned Blue Origin quite differently from another billionaire-owned company, SpaceX. Elon Musk's mission to make humanity a multiplanetary species has clearly given him a head start, at least a decade ahead of Blue Origin. However, with NS-31, Blue Origin has inadvertently positioned itself as a space tourism company catering to the rich and famous. This is a far cry from Bezos' original childhood dream of reaching the moon. While Musk's dream may seem crazier, he has managed to make people feel that he's genuinely working hard, relentlessly pushing toward that goal, something that Bezos seems to be lacking. Third, Blue Origin stirred controversy by calling the 6 women on the flight astronauts. That didn't sit well with space enthusiasts. Many saw it as an insult to real astronauts, people who've trained for years, taken real risks, and made actual contributions to space exploration. Take Suni Williams, for example. She's also a woman, but with a 27-year career in aerospace, 3 missions to the ISS, 9 spacewalks, and over 600 days in space. Compared to that, calling a group of celebrities astronauts feels more like a marketing stunt than a title earned. To some, it's not just controversial, it's borderline disrespectful. To be a real astronaut, the 6 passengers on NS-31 wouldn't stand a chance. They'd have to go through NASA's grueling training program, which takes years and demands top-notch physical and mental toughness. The bar is set pretty high. You need a master's degree or higher, plus experience in risky fields like aviation or engineering. Meanwhile, these astronauts got an 11-minute ride in a suborbital capsule that didn't even reach orbit. Calling them astronauts is a bit of a stretch, don't you think? Next, the flight also ended up turning Jeff Bezos into a laughingstock after the new Shepard spacecraft made its suborbital journey and landed back on Earth. Bezos totally missed a tiny ditch on the ground and face-planted hard while sprinting to his fiancée, Lauren Sanchez. The real kicker? He ate dirt in front of tens of thousands watching the live stream. Lucky for him, nothing got busted. If that live stream had a gift feature, bet he'd have raked in some serious cash from that epic flop. All right, the last reason, and probably one of Jeff Bezos' biggest regrets, is how the NS-31 flight unintentionally led to the comparison of the 6 female tourists to a chimp NASA once trained. Now, let's take a step back in time to a truly wild chapter in space history, the Mercury Redstone 2 mission in 1961. This wasn't just another space experiment. It was high-risk science with an unlikely hero, a chimp named Ham. Trained for 2 years, Ham was tasked with performing crucial actions, like pulling levers in response to signals, all while enduring the intense G-forces and confinement of space. His flight lasted just 16.5 minutes, but he soared to a height of 157 miles, way higher than the 67 miles reached by NS-31. Despite technical hiccups, like an over-accelerating rocket and a partially depressurized capsule, Ham completed his mission with a solid 90% accuracy. His data was key in setting up NASA's landmark human space missions, including Alan Shepard's flight just a few weeks later, on May 5, 1961, and eventually paved the way for the Apollo program. That's one heck of a legacy for a chimp, right? While Ham was a silent hero, risking his life to prove that living beings could survive and work in space, the data he provided became the key to unlocking the era of human spaceflight, from Mercury to Apollo. Without Ham, humanity's first step into space might have been delayed by years. And the 6 NS-31 passengers? Their biggest contribution was lighting up internet forums, sparking debates about whether this flight was historic or just a billionaire joyride. Funny how a chimp who couldn't even talk ended up outshining 6 glittering stars of NS-31. Ham never needed the title of astronaut to be remembered. Meanwhile, the ladies on board seem to have become the punchline of their own space vacation. And here's a little side story. It seems like pop star Katy Perry may have had a tiny moment of regret. When she stepped off the Blue Origin spacecraft, she paused, held a daisy up to the sky, then suddenly dropped to her knees and kissed the earth. To some, it looked a bit dramatic, maybe even laughable, but really, it felt like Katy Perry wasn't putting on a show. That kiss to the ground? It was the raw, unfiltered joy of someone who just realized she survived a ride on a Blue Origin vehicle. Unlike Blue Origin, SpaceX's Dragon has actually gained the trust of real astronauts, the kind who fly missions, not just pose for photos. For example, NASA astronaut Doug Hurley, who returned to Earth from the ISS aboard the Crew Dragon capsule in 2020, had nothing but praise for the vehicle. We're so proud of the SpaceX and NASA teams for pulling off Dragon's first crewed flight flawlessly, he said. I'm almost speechless at how well the vehicle performed and how smoothly the whole mission went. Everything we did on board the International Space Station just worked. Bob Behnken, the NASA astronaut who flew back with Hurley, also described the re-entry into Earth's atmosphere as intense and powerful, but still praised the spacecraft. Dragon really came alive, Behnken said. It started to fire its thrusters and keep us pointed in the right direction. The thrusters were firing almost continuously. It doesn't sound like a machine. It sounds like an animal. Yes, SpaceX's vehicles offer top-tier safety, giving astronauts peace of mind to focus on their missions. This focus on safety drives the company's vision, putting human well-being at the core of every design. While SpaceX continues stacking up wins, Blue Origin still trails behind. Despite big efforts like the promising New Glenn, the rocket has yet to deliver. Built to rival SpaceX's Falcon 9, New Glenn is a two-stage rocket nearly twice the diameter and 98 meters tall, with power closer to Falcon Heavy. It's reusable, designed to land on the landing platform Vessel 1, and features a payload bay twice the size of Falcon 9's. Though it reached orbit earlier this year, there's still no word on a second test flight. What do you get when you take 3 Falcon 9 boosters and strap them together? Well, a Falcon Heavy, of course, the world's second most powerful rocket currently in operation, only to the Starship. Although smaller than Starship and not launched as frequently as Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy is still recognized by the space community as one of the most efficient rockets for military missions. This has established its position in securing valuable contracts from the U.S. military, directly competing with longtime rival ULA, which has traditionally maintained control over lucrative military contracts. However, currently, as ULA's aging fleet struggles to keep pace with the rapidly developing aerospace industry and SpaceX continues to push boundaries with innovative launch systems, the Pentagon is reconsidering its reliance on traditional providers. What is the Pentagon's decision on SpaceX's Falcon Heavy? The reason why they do so? SpaceX's Falcon Heavy represents one of the most significant milestones in modern aerospace history. Conceived as a heavy-lift variant of the company's successful Falcon 9 rocket, Falcon Heavy was designed to carry much larger payloads into orbit at just a fraction of the cost of traditional heavy-lift launch vehicles. After years of development, it made its highly anticipated maiden flight on February 6, 2018, becoming the most powerful operational rocket in the world, second only to NASA's legendary Saturn V in total thrust output. That first launch wasn't just a technical triumph, but also a cultural event. SpaceX captured global attention by sending Elon Musk's personal Tesla Roadster into space, with a mannequin nicknamed Starman behind the wheel. This bold publicity stunt showcased the rocket's capabilities while highlighting SpaceX's sense of flair and creativity. In terms of performance, Falcon Heavy can deliver an impressive 63,800 kilograms, 140,700 pounds, to low Earth orbit, LEO, making it ideal for missions requiring substantial lift capacity. However, despite its power, commercial demand for Falcon Heavy has remained relatively limited. Most satellites and commercial payloads are well served by the more cost-effective Falcon 9, which continues to dominate routine mission launches. But when it comes to military missions, Falcon Heavy has become a standout performer. Its ability to lift heavy, classified, or complex payloads into space has made it a perfect fit for U.S. government and military space operations. As aging vehicles like ULA's Delta IV Heavy were retired and its successor, Vulcan Centaur, faced development delays, Falcon Heavy emerged as the only reliable option for certain high-priority government launches. In 2019, SpaceX secured its first classified military contract by underbidding United Launch Alliance, ULA, a long-standing joint venture traditionally considered the Pentagon's go-to launch provider. This victory was significant not only for its symbolism, but also for the stark price contrast it revealed: $130 million per Falcon Heavy launch versus ULA's $350 million Delta IV Heavy. This pricing advantage, combined with SpaceX's growing reputation for reliability and rapid innovation, further elevated Falcon Heavy's profile. The turning point came in the 2020 National Security Space Launch, NSSL, Phase 2 awards, where SpaceX won 40% of the total mission manifest, effectively breaking ULA's decades-long monopoly on high-value military launches. Momentum only increased in the following phase. During Phase 3 of the NSSL program, SpaceX's share of assigned missions rose to 60%. Initially, ULA's new Vulcan rocket was awarded 60% of these missions, but delays with Vulcan led the U.S. Space Force to reallocate several launches to SpaceX. From that point on, Falcon Heavy became the Pentagon's primary go-to heavy launch vehicle. In the latest announcement on Phase 3 mission allocations, SpaceX once again secured 60% of the missions, outpacing ULA's 40%. Officials have announced that the assignment board has awarded 7 missions to SpaceX with a total combined value of $845.8 million, averaging $120.8 million per launch. Among these, 4 missions are assigned to Falcon Heavy. They are NRO L-97 on Falcon Heavy from Cape Canaveral, USSF-15 on Falcon Heavy from Cape Canaveral, USSF-174 on Falcon Heavy from Cape Canaveral, USSF-186 on Falcon Heavy from Cape Canaveral. Of course, throughout the contract period, the Space Force retains the right to redistribute missions if one provider encounters setbacks. As Elon Musk posted, winning 60% of the missions may sound generous, but the reality is that all SpaceX competitors combined cannot currently deliver the other 40%. I hope they succeed, but they aren't there yet. And that's true if you look at each company's current launch cadence. In the past 365 days, SpaceX has launched Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets 140 times. These are proven, flight-tested vehicles that SpaceX will continue using for critical Space Force missions. As for ULA, once the dominant force in military launches, it's had to accept that its former glory days are no longer guaranteed. ULA's current struggles stem from a combination of internal missteps and external market shifts. The company's revenue has taken a significant hit due to the loss of high-profile military contracts, including recent reassignments of GPS-3 satellite launches to SpaceX. For example, the GPS-3 SV-07 and SV-08 missions, originally slated for ULA's Vulcan Centaur rocket, were shifted to SpaceX's Falcon 9 in 2024 and 2025, respectively, as the U.S. Space Force sought to clear a backlog of satellites. These losses underscore a broader trend. ULA is no longer the default choice for critical national security missions, a reality that has severely disrupted its financial projections. Compounding these challenges are the enormous development costs associated with Vulcan Centaur, ULA's next-generation rocket, designed to replace its aging and costly Atlas V and Delta IV fleets. The Vulcan program, which began development in 2014, has faced repeated delays, technical hurdles, and budget overruns. While Vulcan achieved certification for NSSL missions in late 2024, its protracted development cycle has strained ULA's finances, diverting resources from other priorities. At the same time, ULA must bear the ongoing expense of maintaining legacy infrastructure, including launch facilities, manufacturing plants, and supply chains for the Atlas V and Delta IV, which remain operational for a dwindling number of missions. The competitive landscape has only intensified ULA's woes. SpaceX's reusable Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets have slashed launch costs industry-wide, offering prices that ULA's expendable rockets struggle to match. For instance, a Falcon 9 launch is estimated to cost between $60 to $90 million, while ULA's Atlas V can exceed $150 million per mission, depending on configuration. This price disparity has made SpaceX an increasingly attractive option for both commercial and government customers, further eroding ULA's market share. In 2024, SpaceX conducted over 100 launches, including a growing number of NSSL missions, while ULA managed fewer than a dozen, a stark illustration of their diverging trajectories. ULA's challenges are not solely financial. They also reflect strategic decisions that have left the company ill-prepared for the current market. Unlike SpaceX, which invested heavily in reusable rocket technology, ULA doubled down on expendable systems, banking on its reputation for reliability and its entrenched relationships with the U.S. government. While this approach secured ULA a significant share of NSSL Phase 2 contracts in 2020, valued at billions of dollars over multiple years, it failed to anticipate the disruptive impact of reusability and cost competition. As SpaceX and other players like Blue Origin and Rocket Lab continue to innovate, ULA's reliance on traditional models has left it struggling to remain relevant. The commercial market, once a secondary revenue stream for ULA, has all but evaporated. Companies like Amazon, which selected ULA to launch a portion of its Kuiper satellite constellation, represent rare wins, but the broader trend favors cheaper providers. SpaceX's ability to offer frequent launches and flexible scheduling has made it the preferred partner for commercial ventures, while ULA's higher costs and longer lead times have deterred potential clients. This contraction of its customer base has placed ULA in a vicious cycle. Fewer launches mean less revenue to reinvest in innovation, which in turn limits its ability to compete for future contracts. At the heart of ULA's strategy is Vulcan's Centaur, a rocket designed to restore the company's competitiveness by offering lower costs and greater flexibility than its predecessors. Powered by Blue Origin's BE-4 engines and featuring a modular design, Vulcan promises to reduce launch costs by as much as 30 to 40% compared to Atlas V, with a target price of around $100 million per mission. Its partially reusable smart, sensible, modular, autonomous return technology booster system, still in development, aims to close the gap with SpaceX's reusable rockets. However, Vulcan's journey to operational status has been fraught with challenges. Delays in BE-4 engine deliveries from Blue Origin, coupled with technical issues during testing, pushed Vulcan's first flight to early 2024, years behind schedule. While its successful debut and subsequent NSSL certification were milestones, Vulcan has yet to achieve the launch cadence needed to offset its development costs or compete with SpaceX's relentless pace. ULA plans to ramp up Vulcan launches in 2025, with a goal of 10 to 12 missions, but this remains a fraction of SpaceX's output. Moreover, Vulcan's cost savings, while significant, may not be enough to undercut SpaceX's pricing or lure back commercial customers in meaningful numbers. With its financial outlook darkening, ULA has reportedly entered discussions about a potential sale or corporate restructuring. Industry analysts and insiders have increasingly pointed to Blue Origin, founded by Jeff Bezos, as a leading candidate to acquire or merge with ULA. The two companies share a symbiotic relationship. Blue Origin's BE-4 engines power, Vulcan and ULA's launch contracts provide Blue Origin with a steady revenue stream. A merger could create a powerhouse capable of challenging SpaceX by combining ULA's government contracts, launch expertise, and infrastructure with Blue Origin's deep financial resources and ambitious vision for reusable rockets like New Glenn. The strategic rationale for a Blue Origin ULA deal is compelling. For Blue Origin, acquiring ULA would provide immediate access to NSSL contracts and a proven track record of military launches, accelerating its growth in the national security space. ULA's launch facilities at Cape Canaveral and Vandenberg Space Force Base, along with its experienced workforce, would bolster Blue Origin's operational capacity as it scales up New Glenn launches, currently projected to begin in earnest in 2025. For ULA, Blue Origin's financial backing, fueled by Bezos' personal wealth and Amazon's corporate muscle, could alleviate its debt burden and fund further development of Vulcan's reusable technologies. A merger could also yield operational efficiencies. By consolidating manufacturing, supply chains, and launch infrastructure, the combined entity could reduce costs and improve competitiveness. Additionally, Blue Origin's focus on lunar and deep space missions aligns with ULA's aspirations to expand beyond low Earth orbit, potentially positioning the new company as a key player in NASA's Artemis program and other exploration initiatives. In general, ULA stands at a pivotal moment. Without decisive action, it risks being relegated to a niche provider, overshadowed by SpaceX's dominance and Blue Origin's ascent. A sale or merger could offer a lifeline, enabling ULA to leverage new resources and technologies to regain its footing. However, executing such a deal will require navigating a minefield of financial, regulatory, and cultural challenges. For now, ULA's fate hinges on Vulcan Centaur's ability to deliver on its promise and the company's capacity to adapt to a market that rewards speed, affordability, and innovation. As the space industry continues its rapid transformation, ULA must find a way to redefine itself, or risk fading into obscurity in an era it once defined. That's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.